Well, ladies and gentlemen, today on Rethink Real Estate, we have a real treat, Deanna D'Egidio. Now, Deanna and Alex Duke are the thriving force behind Harcourts up in LA. It's been a real pleasure to watch their meteoric rise to some of the best brokers and agents in all of LA. Their name is so recognized within the community that it sits on buses, trucks, and things like that, where they do their complimentary staging and they retransform a home before putting it on the marketplace. But today we're not talking about their sales strategy. We are talking about the recovery of LA from the fires. We're talking about all of the things that they are doing as a real estate community. They are part of some of the top brokers that are petitioning Sacramento. We're talking about the recovery process of what that looks like in the Palisades and Malibu, their personal experience of selling properties within there, not only on PCH, on the ocean in Malibu, but also in the Pacific Palisades as well. They talk about also the experience and Deanna's experience personally with her family in Calabasas after the 2018 Woolsey fires. Again, this is a very good in-depth episode. We would have liked it to be under different circumstances, getting Deanna on the podcast first and foremost. We promise we will have her back on to go through the ins and outs of their business and how they've built it in a short period of time and how they've built it through complete referral. But that being said, today is more about the LA community, giving some more information on all of the things that are going on there. So hopefully this helps. Sit back. You're in for a real treat. Deanna's very knowledgeable with all of this stuff. Thanks so much. Welcome to Rethink Real Estate. My name is Ben Brady, and this is a real estate podcast aimed to deliver sales strategies, marketing tips, and business insights from industry experts and myself to build a listing-focused business for the future. Let's get into it. Deanna, welcome to Rethink Real Estate.
Ben Brady, the legend. I am so honored to be here with you today. I feel like it's been a long time coming.
Well, that was where I was going here, is that it's been a long time coming to get you on the podcast, because I really believe that all the listeners ultimately can benefit from how you and Alex run your business, and the meteoric rise that you and him have had as real estate people in LA has been something that I've wanted to document for a very, very long time. However, that being said, Dee, today it's a little bit of a different episode for us, because whilst obviously there'll be the things that come into mind for your business, yours and Alex's business, it's more about the LA fires and you being able to get us in touch with this, because you have definitely, the both of you have definitely been, hands in and really helping out the community in a very large way. Some of the stuff that I've seen on social and that we've communicated about. Obviously, I wish this podcast was under better circumstances, but give me an idea of just LA at the moment.
Yeah, Ben, I appreciate you saying that. And, first of all, I do want to thank the Harcourts community, Harcourts North America. We've had so many agents, reaching out to us, ensuring that, our safety was okay. We were under evacuation warning, but it wasn't a mandatory evacuation order. So we've certainly over the past couple of weeks have just been inundated with clients, friends who have been impacted by the devastation that these fires have just created. Unimaginable destruction that we could have never imagined could have happened in our lifetimes. My family lived through the 2018 Woolsey fire, which was in Calabasas, and a lot of homes in Calabasas were burned down. And I remember Alex and I were in escrow on 2 properties in Calabasas. We stayed behind, and my mom, evacuated the home that we grew up in Calabasas. And I remember, my dad was leaving for work that day, and the last thing he said is, they're never going to let one of these homes burn down. Sure enough, in 2018, we saw, a historic fire in Los Angeles, and the last fire before that was in the 70s. So, to see the Woolsey fires in 2018, no one thought that something of that historic proportion could ever happen again in our lifetime. So to have this happen was truly shocking for so many people. And, Alex and I, it just, our love and support and prayers are continuing to be poured out to the city. And, we've been kind of on the front line, right, at the pulse of this market, and, really being a valuable resource and a light for our clients that are truly just trying to process what tomorrow looks like and the next day, and how we can utilize our resources, right, to really get in there and help them make the best decision for their real estate needs moving forward.
Well, I think that the part that I'd like to sort of just double click on for a second, though, Deanna, to give people a bit of a context to how you and Alex can speak to this and where it all is. Your expertise within the greater Los Angeles marketplace is pretty vast. But that being said, is that only, what was it? I think 4 to 6 months before the fires, you guys closed on a property over $20 million on
Yeah.
PCH in Malibu. And I know that search was pretty extensive through the Palisades and across PCH and everything along those lines. So you guys have a very clear understanding of the scope of the devastation there, but also in the other parts that were affected through LA. Something like 12,000 homes have been lost to the fire. So give us an idea of the scope of devastation to put it into context for people.
The scope of devastation, I mean, if you've seen the news, right? I mean, the entire city of the Palisades has been pretty much wiped out. PCH from to Carbon Beach, pretty much to Bird Rock. All the homes along coastal PCH have been burnt down. It's just so shocking to see, because that's such an iconic part of our city, are those coastal PCH homes. And to put this in perspective, we had started our home search with our clients who had been looking to purchase a home on PCH. And we probably showed them 6 or 8 of those properties that had burned down to the ground. And, it's interesting. The house that they ended up purchasing was in a community called the Colony in Malibu. One of the reasons why I, was a big advocate of them investing in this property was because it was somewhat insulated from the mountains, from the canyon. It was one of the only properties that didn't have a mountain behind it on the other side on PCH.
Right.
So that was something that I felt was really important for them. And thankfully, they were able to contain the fires before they got far enough north to where the Colony is. So that was, certainly a blessing for them. But, about 5 other homes that we have sold in the past 12 months, 12 months were completely destroyed to rubble. And, the first home that we found out, Alex and I were at the gym, and we were watching the news. Everyone was glued to the news during this time. The first day the fires broke out was Tuesday, January 7th. And no one thought it was going to be at this level of destruction. No one thought, we were hearing news about these winds, but no one really believed it, the amount of devastation could have taken place. So we're at the gym and I get a text from the buyer of this property, Paseo Miramar, which was a beautiful home that we sold. Our clients had had it on the market for 3 years. They couldn't sell this house. Imagine this, 3 years. They worked with multiple brokers. They can't sell the house. We get in there. We apply our business model. We redesign the house. We have an incredible result for this client. We get it sold for them in 45 days. Okay. Now they've moved to Edwards, Colorado. So I get a text from the buyer of that property. And I had reached out to them earlier to see how they were doing. And they get back to me. They say, D, the house burned down. And Alex was on the elliptical in front of me. I go, Alex, we got to go. I said, Paseo Miramar burned down. And I'm like, I still get goosebumps. It was so just unfathomable. So I text the clients that sold the house, let them know what was going on. I got the video of the buyer, who's also, Alex and I became friends with. He was a broker as well, but we really helped out him a lot during the transaction. We were helping him and his wife also remodel the house. So when I found out how big the devastation was, and we're pretty close to the Palisades, by the way. Palisades is like 5 miles,
Just there.
west of where we're at. So we're close, and we have a little baby at our house, and so so Alex goes, well, let's stop at the grocery store real quick. We got to get some fresh vegetables and fruit for the baby, just in case. And we're at the grocery store, and I look up, I'm in the truck, and there's a billboard that's like bellowing over the grocery store, like it looked like the billboard was going to fall down, and I was like, holy moly, this is so much more severe. And if Paseo Miramar is already on fire, then this destruction is going to be unbelievable. And by the time we got home, there was trees. By the time we left the grocery store, there was already trees falling over in the streets. And Alex was moving branches out of the way. We got everything ready to evacuate. Within 6 hours, right? The Palisades fire, really, by the time the devastation really started, within 6 hours, 75% of those homes had burned down. That's how quickly it happened. And so many people weren't even able to get to their houses to evacuate. I mean, people lost I don't want to get into all the devastation, but it happened so quickly. The winds were like hurricane force winds that no one could have, you guys saw on the news. But, so I think that it was so shocking, and it still is shocking today. I mean, they're not even allowing, or they're just now starting to allow residents into the neighborhoods, right? So if you live, you have to show your driver's license, you have to prove that you live in the neighborhood, and you're only allowed to be in the devastation zones with a court. They have the National Guard. The National Guard will escort you
Right.
between the hours of 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. So it's the only time you could go there to meet with contractors, to meet with insurance adjusters. So it's still not contained as a safe zone right now.
No.
Um, but yes, to put this in perspective, as you had mentioned, 12,000 home structures burnt down, and in the Palisades, Malibu, and also in Altadena, which is where the Eaton fires are,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
and the Altadena is more of an affordable price point for homeowners, right? So you see home values in Altadena ranging from 1.5 to, call it, like $3 million. Still a nice neighborhood.
So D, let's just dive into that for a second. I do want to make one comment. You sent me a video from the owner of the property that you were referring to, and the one that you guys sold, which, by the way, if you have a look at the video that you guys done online, it was just the job that you did on that property, considering it had been on the market previously, was unbelievable. But the thing that really put it into perspective for me, this gentleman's driving out of his driveway and there are flames on both sides of the road as he's driving out of that driveway. Like, it's just that it honestly was like something from a movie. However, the thing that I would say is that because we're just talking about Altadena now a little bit, Malibu and the Palisades has received so much attention because I believe the price point of those properties and them being so well known. But realistically, the devastation that goes so much further than that. But then, you had said something to me off camera previously that really made me think that I hadn't thought of at all. It's not only the devastation of those that burnt down or had some smoke damage or had some fire damage. It was really also the surrounding areas where the home might not have burnt down, but gas lines, power lines, infrastructure just completely gone.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really what I would say, the immediate impact, right, on the housing market right now is there's absolutely a surge in demand from renters. But we're also starting to see it. And I still think this is preliminary. That, the ash hasn't really settled yet, right? The dust hasn't settled from these homes that have been destroyed. And a lot of the conversations we're having with homeowners right now is the insurance, right? How are we going to handle this with everyone is now reviewing their insurance policies, right? Because that's most important. How much are we going to have to rebuild? How long is it going to take us to rebuild? How long are we going to need to find a rental for, D? How much are we going to be paying this rental? Should we just buy something until we can build our house, and at least we're building equity, because the insurance is only going to pay us X amount of dollars. It's only going to cover us for 3 months of rental in LA. I mean, price gouging, all these new things that are coming into consideration here. But if you think about it, a lot of people who were looking to buy homes in the Palisades and Malibu are no longer looking at those markets, right? So we have clients, and even we have clients whose home survived. I have a client right now. She had a townhouse in the Highlands. She was already looking to move out to other markets, in the San Fernando Valley and elsewhere. And these fires have absolutely accelerated her search, right? She does not want to go back there. She's evacuated because she's displaced because of the utility lines, because of the, toxicity in the air quality. She has ash, all in her insulation and drywall, but she doesn't want to go back to her property now. Why? Because her son's school has been completely reduced to rubble. Her shop, her grocery store, her Starbucks, all the infrastructure in the community, the lifestyle as to why she, loved that community so much is no longer there. So, I think that's the overall impact that we're seeing. That's going to take years to rebuild. And, if you put this into perspective, last year in Los Angeles, the number of homes that traded was 13,000, right?
Yeah.
So in the Altadena, Eaton fires, and the Palisades fires alone, we lost 12,000 structures, right?
That's crazy.
Which is wild. So if
you lost the year's worth of inventory.
Years worth of inventory in already a supply constrained market, right? Here in LA, we have one of the biggest inventory problems in the country. So when you add that to the formula here. I mean, we're going to see a surge in demand from homeowners in neighboring markets. Because keep in mind, a lot of the folks that live in, Altadena and the Palisades, you have a lot of professionals, right? Now, some of these folks are going to say, time for us to leave LA. It happens. I get it. Too traumatizing. They're out, right? That could very well happen. But, a lot of these folks are, they've multiple generations of homeowners that lived in these communities, and they have careers. They're producers, they're surgeons, they're, high profile attorneys. They can't just leave LA. Their
Right.
offices are in Century City. Their offices are in the West Side. So what neighborhoods, and this is I remember Alex and I, the day after the fires happened, I was already on the hunt. I'm like, what neighborhoods can provide this lifestyle that our clients need, right? Where, you look at the price points, for what they can afford and all these factors. And, like you said, with Altadena and the Palisades, these are two completely different real estate markets. The
Right.
Palisades being the high-end luxury market, and Altadena having more of those homes that call them, the barrier to enter, right, for
Yeah.
Los
Yeah. Yeah.
Angeles.
Yep.
And
Yep.
Altadena is a beautiful, beautiful community, but they're more affordable homes, right?
Yes.
Now, this kind of dives into another topic that I want to talk about, and it's the insurance, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of these homes were on what's called the California Fair Plan. Now, the
This is something that I don't think, So Dee, I'm really
yeah,
glad that you're diving into this, because a lot of people just think, oh no, well, they can get the California Fair Plan, so at the end of the day, they can have whatever they want and whatever it may be. Like they just got the government to back them and whatever. So there's two problems in that sense, is that the insurance side, which I hope you can clarify, but then there's also this other problem about them not having enough funds. But walk us through what all of this is, because a lot of people seem
absolutely.
to think that it was already a solution.
So we've been in an insurance crisis here in Los Angeles and throughout Southern California, right? This all stemmed from the 2018 Woolsey fires, but it wasn't just from the Woolsey fires. It was from the the Armageddon fires that we had all over Northern California, in Napa, in the Paradise fires, in Ventura County, in the foothills. So, after the Woolsey fires, the devastation caused the insurance companies, for every dollar they were collecting, they were paying out about $1.80. So these insurance companies were losing money. They were assessing their risk, and a lot of them said, "You know what? The state's not letting us increase our premiums on what we're charging the insurance. We're out. We're leaving the state of California."
Hmm.
So, of course, legislators had to step in, regulators had to step in and say, wait a minute, we can't leave all these homeowners uninsured. So they created what's called the California Fair Plan. Now, what a lot of people don't understand about the California Fair Plan is that it is regulated by the government, right? By Sacramento. However, it is backed by every major insurance carrier that is still in California.
Okay.
So, say for example, in the Palisades, right? Or just, for whole numbers, let's say there's $1 billion worth of damage in the Palisades, and the Fair Plan has about $500 million in reserves. So there's a $500 million differential there. And let's say State Farm still, owns 20% market share of
Yep.
insuring properties in Palisades. So State Farm is actually on the hook to cover the 20% difference in
Right.
what is the Fair Plan has and what is owed. The reason being is because State Farm is still insuring these properties for what we call the wraparound difference in condition, water, liability, all these other things to cover the house. It's just fire that the Fair Plan covers. So
Got
it's
it.
the Fair Plan is covering the house for fire, but all these other carriers are covering the house for other issues. The problem we've had with the Fair Plan, and this is something that's been ongoing for Alex and I would say for the past 3 years, when the insurance company started leaving and it really cracked down, is when we're selling a home in Bel Air or Brentwood or the Palisades, right? And the most important number here is that the Fair Plan only goes up to $3 million for everything:
Yeah.
dwelling,
Right.
personal property, out of pocket rental. So when we're talking about, an to $20 million home, that is not enough coverage. Okay. So most of these homes were underinsured and it was very expensive to get private insurance. I mean, we learned early on for us, for our business model, we're so invested. When you're listing a luxury property in LA, we're putting up anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 of our investment in getting that house sold. So I need to make sure the first thing I do, if I'm representing a buyer or if I'm representing a seller, is I'm reaching out to my very, very reliable network of insurance brokers. And they are guiding me and telling me everything I need to know about these properties so that we don't find ourselves in a situation in escrow where the buyer gets cold feet or the seller goes, oh my gosh, we can't transfer our insurance. It's going to cost us much money. How do we sell this asset? It's so
Deanna,
critical.
I want to talk about this for just 1 second, though. We can't give specifics about the deal, but the reality is that you, Alex, and I are in a position at the moment on something where the broker, being the agent on the other side of the buyer, trying to buy one of the properties, they went and did their inspections, everything like that.
Yeah.
They waived the contingencies, and then they realized the insurance problem after they're waiving the contingencies. And that buyer, it's going to cost that buyer a lot of money to get out of that deal, just
Huge
because
error.
they wanted to turn a blind eye. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people have always thought about insurance in the sense of, it's fine, we'll find somebody. There's so many carriers out there. It's
Yeah.
fine. It is not the case in LA anymore,
It
right?
is not. And it hasn't been for quite some time. So, in some situations, there are a lot of inexperienced realtors in LA that don't know how to get in front of this. But the truth of the matter is, the California Fair Plan, like for that specific property, the Fair Plan would have been perfect. The house would not have been underinsured because it's 3 million, not including the land value. So,
Right.
that price point, the land of that property was 2.5. It was a $4.5 million house that we were selling. So the Fair Plan to rebuild that house would have been 2 to 2.5. You're good on the Fair Plan on that property.
Absolutely.
But that agent did not know how to explain this to his client, did not know how to manage his client's expectations. So his client went out and was like, oh, I'm going to go to Lloyd's or Chubb's and get a private policy. That's going to cost you $200,000 a year. Of course, they're going to be sticker shock when they see that. Whereas the Fair Plan plus the wraparound DIC is going to be 10 to 12K. Totally reasonable. That's a great policy. So the moral of the story here is we were hoping that we were going to be out of this whole insurance landscape because it takes time after you have these natural disasters, right? For the insurance companies to slowly come back in, reassess their risk. Okay, what are you doing in the state of what is the California doing as a state to mitigate some of this risk? And by God, there was going to be a lot of stuff changing just throughout the state, right?
Yeah.
And there already have been things, brush clearance. We get every escrow we have right now. If you haven't done your brush clearance every year, guess what? They're filing a lien on your property and you're paying that when you sell the home, and they're charging you 5 times what it would have cost if you went and did the brush clearance on your own.
Yeah.
So there's so many things that you just need to know as a homeowner that we're constantly staying on top of and getting out in front of. But the insurance is certainly something, and it's actually one of the items that is one of the key measures that a lot of the top brokers, a lot of our colleagues here in LA are really we've been writing to Sacramento to get support. One of the big things is they need to increase that threshold on the California Fair Plan, especially for the rebuilds in the Palisades.
So this is something, Deanna, that I saw. I don't know a lot about, and I'd love to get your thoughts on a little bit, because I noticed that there was, and I know you guys were included in the top brokers of LA to be part of this solution in order to actually reach out to Sacramento, as you just said. But what exactly are they asking? What are you guys asking for, essentially? I'm a little unclear around what you're doing. You're petitioning Sacramento to up the Fair Plan amount from 3 million to X amount more. Is that right? Or is there anything else in that?
Yeah. So these are key measures that, being at the pulse of the market and knowing how this is going to impact these neighborhoods and markets that have already seen such financial and economic loss. Like, how do we rebuild and support the values of these markets that have been impacted? And some of these items we've already heard on the news, relating to relaxing some of the building restrictions. Because one thing you got to keep in mind, it's so crazy because we always hear about this is, we sell homes and we always say, you can't build homes like this anymore, because it's true. You can't. They got
some of those mid-century modern homes that were there, like
my house. My house cannot rebuild this. I have no
Yeah.
shear value in my walls right now. So that is the truth. You can't. But this that aside, there's like mansion ordinances where certain lot sizes, you can only build up to 25% of that lot size. And now they're including like open space. So like height of ceilings now is being impacted. So all these beautiful, I mean, Palisades had some of the most iconic architectural homes. And so, relaxing the building restrictions so those homes can be rebuilt again.
Yep.
Increasing the insurance coverage, raising the FAIR plan. This is going to be critical. We're suggesting raising it from 3 million to 6 million, right? And of course, the homeowners will pay accordingly, right?
Of course,
They
of
should be
course.
paying a much higher
You're not
premium.
asking. You're not asking them to pay $3 million
No,
policy prices. You're asking again because
it'll
a
be
lot of
it'll
the
be 50 grand. If they should be paying $50,000 for a $6 million policy, that is appropriate. But they're not paying $250,000 because
exactly right.
you're going to destroy our markets. So that's another one. Tax exemptions, right? So temporarily, people who lost their properties. Not having to pay property taxes. That's another thing that you've been hearing on the news. I believe there is a moratorium in place on that. So you do have to still pay the property taxes for the assessment of the land value, but not the dwelling. So that's something that's already been approved. Streamlining the approvals. This is especially relevant to homes in Malibu, right?
Can I ask a question on this just
Yeah.
quickly before you dive into this in detail? I heard something, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong here. I heard that they're fast tracking the approval because you and I have both dealt with the Coastal Commission on several occasions with properties that we have.
Yep.
And again, I don't want to get myself in trouble here, but the Coastal Commission, for lack of better terminology, is a nightmare to deal with from
Yeah.
a time perspective, from an approval process, from just the bureaucracy that goes on
Yeah,
within it. There you go.
exactly.
Yeah, the dollars, the
The dollar.
dollars.
Yep.
But that being said, is that I heard that they were fast tracking approvals if you built the property that looks the same with the same material,
Yep.
which to me is a little bit bonkers in the sense that why would you build something with the same materials if it's
Right.
just going to burn the fuck down again? I don't like.
Exactly. I mean, and that's it. I don't know if you saw there's this one house. I mean, every home around it burned down. And there was this one house. I mean, Alex knows more about the story, but it was made of like this concrete that was could not catch on fire.
Yeah, fire retardant. Yeah,
So it's
completely fire
fire
retardant.
retardant, and the house didn't have a single burn mark on it. And so that's absolutely, I mean, people are going to be, pushing to rebuild these homes with materials, right? Certainly, and we saw this in homes that, and I'm going to, the last time we had something at this magnitude, that was deemed a state of emergency natural disaster was the 1994 earthquakes in
Right.
Northridge. And it was, that the destruction at this level, 40,000 structures were destroyed. My family was definitely impacted by this. We had a lot of people that lost their homes. But what was interesting is that after the Northridge earthquakes, a lot of homes that we sold that were like in the major fault zones, they had these houses like reinforced with steel beams, like commercial grade. Like those homes weren't going anywhere because
Anywhere.
those people were so traumatized by like what happened to their homes, like literally falling over, that like they reinforced them beyond belief. Like those homes were so solid. So I do think that that's, when we rebuild, let's hope that they let us rebuild better homes, right?
Yeah.
That are better
Yeah.
for the environment, that are better for, all these things. So it doesn't happen again. So, and then the other major point that was on this measure was the ULA, the mansion tax,
Okay.
which has just been a nightmare because, there are going to be a lot of folks in the Palisades that are going to just realize, not now, but in the next, I think this summer is going to have a lot of people looking to buy because they're going to realize they're not going to be rebuilding. The cost is going to be too cost prohibitive. And also these people, it's so time consuming. My
Yeah, that's
sister
right.
bought the house next door to my parents' house burned down. And so I saw the owner of the house that burnt down, and he was a retired IP judge. I said, Mr. Kelly, I don't know if you're planning on rebuilding, but if you're not, my family might be really interested in purchasing the lot because my parents are getting older. My sister's pregnant with her third baby, and maybe she wants to build the house next door to my parents. Well, we did. She bought the lot, and COVID hit, so she moved in with my parents. Took her almost 4 years to build. Granted,
Oh,
it was
wow.
COVID. My mother wanted to murder me because I told my mom it was going to be 18 months to rebuild, and here she is now with 3 kids. My nieces and nephews driving her absolutely insane. Mom, if you're watching, I love you. But the truth is it took a long time, and Michaela had to be there every day, right?
Yeah.
It was so time consuming. Her husband's an attorney. Brian was busy. So Mikhail's watching 3 kids. She's building that house. It was a full time job.
And
So
I
for
do want to go through that a little bit on the road to recovery, but I want to go back just before we get to the road to recovery, Deanna, I want to go back to this. What is it called with you and the top brokers that are putting that letter together to Sacramento? Is it a memorandum? What did you call it?
it was like an open letter. That was an open letter that was sent to Sacramento, essentially highlighting these key measures that are critical. I mean, the ULA, for example, the people that decide not to rebuild, for a builder, right, to come in and say, okay, I'm willing to buy this land and build on this, but if I build anything over 5 million, I'm
Yep,
having to pay 4% right at the bat if I build. So builders were already so discouraged from building, as it
absolutely.
stands. So we need to be able to incentivize builders to build these, beautiful homes again, so that they, to keep this economy moving, right?
Yeah, and just to put a point on that as well, because this is something I just wanted to touch on. Not that this episode is about the ULA tax or anything along those lines, but I just want to be clear on that. Is that I want you to correct me if I'm wrong. All of the funds that they've generated from that so far are sitting somewhere like that
Absolutely correct.
they're not even being used,
Didn't even
and
touch it. It's
yeah,
in an
they didn't even
escrow
touch it.
account.
Yep.
It's in an escrow account because it's in litigation right now. I mean, it's what I don't know. I don't want to get too much into that, but it is.
Yep.
Is it unconstitutional? Yes. I mean, it's crazy too because there's so many cities in LA that are like unincorporated. So the unincorporated cities are excluded from Measure ULA. So I don't know if you know this. Like,
Oh shit! I did not know that. That's
yeah.
really
So I'm like, how many? And that's the thing I think is really unfair is, there's really only, call it maybe 9 or 10 cities in LA that have homes
Mhm.
between, north of 5 million, right? Pays the 4%, over 10 pays the 5% tax. And all these other markets aren't really being impacted, but there is a trickle down effect, and we're starting to see that trickle down effect because what happens is, okay, now the homes in the four, but then you have these cities like Calabasas, unincorporated,
Right.
Malibu's unincorporated, but Palisades is incorporated. So you have Malibu's not affected by the ULA, but Calabasas is. So how is that fair for homeowners in the Palisades?
It
You're
doesn't make
paying
any
the same
sense.
taxes.
It
It
doesn't make
doesn't
any
make
sense.
any sense.
No.
It doesn't make any sense. So the
No.
whole thing is just bizarre. The
Yeah.
money's not being spent where it's supposed to. It's in an escrow account right now because there's multiple lawsuits. They're trying to get this overturned, but there's a lot of thoughts on the Measure ULA. I mean, I'm always cautiously optimistic that it's
Yep.
going to be overturned. Alex being more Alex, the realist that he is, right? He says it's going to have to be. It's a long haul, so we're not counting on that right now. Um,
I think Dee, the thing that I want to say that I hope the open letter is obviously taken into consideration. One of the best parts about any silver lining and any devastating event when it comes to this, it makes people reflect and rethink. So hopefully, not only do we get startups that can better assess, insurance policies and how they're going to do things, we can also hopefully have, Sacramento and maybe the state of California and the federal government also reflect on this as well, because I know Florida is another impacted state that they've managed to work on from their, their not cyclone, but the excuse me, I'm going to get it wrong, but
Hurricanes.
hurricanes. There you go.
Yeah.
But coming back down to this now, because I want to come into the rebuild process,
Mhm.
because this is something that is really conscious to me, because whilst people are like, okay, well, they were insured, they need to rebuild. You were saying how long that actually takes, just from the perspective of the Woolsey fire and the experience that
Yeah.
your family had. And that was, again, I'm not underplaying the devastation, but it wasn't anywhere near the magnitude of what this devastation is. So,
Yeah.
like, imagine also being so proactive that you're building a home right now, and maybe you can get things done in a timely manner, but the construction zone or the quote unquote war zone that you're going to live in as well. Like, some of these people don't have an option. So what does it look like from a road to recovery perspective?
It's a great question. And like you said, we will rebuild and we will rebuild a better city. And it's going to take time. It's going to take time. If you look at the aftermath of the Woolsey fires, we didn't have nearly as many structures that burned down, but there are still homes in Malibu. Okay. There are still homes in Malibu that have not completed construction from the Woolsey fires.
Mm.
And that was in 2018, right? So here we are almost 7 years later,
That's
um,
crazy.
which is crazy, right? Now, You take a city like the Palisades, right? One of the reasons why we had so much destruction in the Palisades is because these neighborhoods are not easily accessible communities, right? So in Calabasas, Calabasas was established in the 90s. When they were building these communities, they had fire roads coming in and out. The Palisades was not like that. And in fact, a lot of these homes, including Paseo Miramar, these were very difficult neighborhoods to get in and out of. So when you're talking about getting materials to these job sites, when you're talking about, making sure that you're getting all the debris removed from these sites, it's going to take a long time. And, I am so hopeful that these homeowners are going to be able to rebuild. I'm, absolutely encouraging that. And, being able to find, there's great architects out there. And I'm like calling all these architects. We need those architects. We don't want to see these ugly modern boxes anymore. Like,
Yeah.
Really, if people can afford to do that. But the truth of the matter is I think that, a lot of people are going to say, let's say, you're in, your 70s or there's a lot of folks that are like that. They may have lived in this house, or maybe their parents' home that they inherited, and they, multiple generations living there. If you're in your 70s, you're not going to want to go through a 4-year, 5-year, 6-year, 7-year rebuild. You're not, And so what I'm seeing though with these conversations with a lot of these folks is, I just spoke to someone, yesterday. They live in Rustic Canyon, which is nearby in Santa Monica, and she was like, Dee, Bob and I were already thinking of moving, downsizing, right? And so it's just kind of accelerating those conversations. Now,
Right.
part of their home did have serious fire damage. Wasn't a total loss. If it was a total loss, they would have been absolutely out. And what they're going to do is they're going to max out their insurance policies, right? So they're going to take the money from their insurance. They'll own the land outright. Some of them will have to sit on that land for a little while, right? And wait till the rest of the neighborhood is more developed so that the land is worth a fair market value, because it's not, it's going to be under market value right now until everything gets rebuilt. And they're going to move on. And I think that, the rebuild process, it's going to be tough, and there's going to be I was reading also some statistics on the Woolsey fires, kind of just circling back on it. And
Yeah.
even then, only 50% rebuilt, right? So the
Is
neighbor,
that right? Only
yeah,
50%.
only 50%. And, in fact, I don't know if you guys saw, we have a gorgeous new listing. Actually, we're closing escrow on Thursday, tomorrow, on this property in Westlake. And I know Callista loves this house.
That's the one. Yeah, that was the one that. Oh, yeah. I remember the redesign that you guys did on it. And is
There's
it
one
near
on the
the?
North Ranch Golf Course. It's
Got it.
beautiful, stunning, modern Cape Cod. I mean, our client did an incredible job rebuilding this. And it's just, I met them like 3 years ago while they were starting the rebuild 4 years ago. And, she built such a beautiful home. So it's so inspiring to see that. And she rebuilt this knowing that they were going to be selling it. It was almost an investment for her too, right? That was always the thought process. But her and her husband are employment law attorneys. They were going to be retiring and moving up, by the Bay Area, or I'm sorry, Central Coast. So they rebuilt a stunning home, but we just listed that property,
Yeah.
right, recently, and that was a burned down house, and in that little pocket, right, every other home in that little pocket was built by either the land was sold to an end user or the land was sold to a builder. So
Right.
they were the only ones in that, and there in that pocket there wasn't that many. There was maybe 12 homes and 10 of them burnt down, but they were the only one that rebuilt,
Yeah.
So it's pretty telling. And that's also why, we're kind of trying to get out in front of this and seeing like, where are these people going to move? If all these people are displaced, another thing that I got a call, and it's so interesting because we've been getting calls from folks like all over the country. Like we got a call from the sweetest man, and he's like, "Hi, my name is Joe from Arkansas, and I got a barn here. And if you have any folks that are looking to rent out a barn, and I got a nice little ranch house out here, and we got a guy call us. He had like a yacht in Marina Del Rey, and he's like,
Right.
I'm willing to temporarily rent out my yacht for people to stay there. And then I got a call from this mobile home manufacturer. And this guy is like, he owns a huge company that builds these modular, not mobile homes, modular homes.
Modular homes. Yep.
And he was like, I was thinking, I'm sure. And then I was reading, and Newsom actually is saying like, there's no permits necessary to build a modular home on these lots. So like that would be a great idea for like, especially like the Altadena folks, right? Like you put a modular home on your lot, right? You don't have to pay anything. They're offering like 0% down financing for these modular homes, or like 250 grand or whatever. You put that on your lot and then you build the home while that's there and you slowly rebuild. The thing with the rebuild for Palisades, the rebuild for the Palisades, is going to take longer. Obviously, they're
Right.
more expensive homes. Material construction costs are going to go through the roof just because getting the resources they need to these job sites. But with Altadena, the silver lining is that those homes were not underinsured. Okay,
Yeah.
because the price points,
Right.
right? So that's such a blessing that, and also because a lot of those folks, like their net worth or all of their, you know, life savings was in their homes, right?
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
a
That's
lot.
right.
So I think that's definitely a silver lining. But those folks, because of that, will probably have to rebuild because they have so much equity in their homes. The ones that do have so much equity in their homes, so I think that's something that, we'll see. I mean, this is still all.
D, I want to get your thoughts on this though, like, because I think that there's an element of this that where the reinsuring of these properties though, like I
Yes.
know that we're talking, like I know that you guys are taking an initiative with Sacramento in order to help with the California Fair Plan, but that being said, is that like most people can't afford. Like I know now, like if you were to take into consideration that Callistra and I, we reinsured our property in October of last year.
Uh-huh.
And we had the choice of previously, the year previous, so 2023, we had the choice of, I think it was like 15 insurance companies. This year, now we are in an area that doesn't have any fire danger whatsoever. We're close to the coast and all that type of stuff. And it got deemed a low fire hazard area. But the reality is that my premium still went up 3 times, right? Than what I paid the year previous. Now, this fire situation has happened. The repercussions of this throughout California in general from a fire perspective, do you think that's going to put some downward pressure on values of properties across California or even Southern California?
I definitely see the luxury market being impacted because of the cost to insure these properties. I mean, for an $8 to $10 million house, paying $100,000 a year in insurance is reasonable to expect. Um, that will, and that's in perpetuity,
Yeah.
right? Until we get out of this again. And we thought we were out of it with the Bluesy fires. The reason we found ourselves in this situation with all of these major insurance carriers, like you said, there was 15 and now we're dwindling, but there's actually like new ones that are entering. So I'm involved in a lot of these insurance network groups, and there's some great new insurance companies that are entering
Yeah.
the market too, like this company, like tech insurance companies, which is great.
Yep.
The reality is that yes, expect insurance premiums to go up, right?
Yeah.
The reason we've been in this situation though is like I have homeowners that are like, we've been paying $3,000 a year for home insurance for the past 20 years. I'm like, that's why all these carriers have left, because the state wasn't allowing them to increase what they were allowed to charge. So if we were in a position where these carriers were allowed to increase the premiums annually the way that they were, then we wouldn't have been so reliant on the fair plan, because these carriers wouldn't have all left. The only way, I'm sorry, you can qualify for the California Fair Plan is if you can't voluntarily say, hey, I want to be on the Fair Plan today. Nope, doesn't work that way. You have to be literally denied by every single other insurance.
Oh, right. It's not just an option. It's
It's
something.
not an
Oh,
option.
right. 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 Right.
Yes,
Right. 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 Right.
exactly. So that's why we're in this kind of like insurance mess, so to speak. So I think that's why I think like there's going to be a lot more pressure in Sacramento so that it doesn't get worse, because it was already kind of bad. But I
Yeah.
think that, yes, I think that, but at the same time, paying $15,000 a year, is that reasonable to pay for your insurance? Yeah, it is. It is paying $1,000 a month for, a house that's $3 million. I mean, that seems pretty reasonable in today's standards. Um,
Absolutely.
but another thing that's going to go up, and this is another thing that's really just, there's a lot of, when you have these types of situations, there's a lot of opportunists. There's a lot of, insurance fraud. And that was a big issue from the Woozy fires, was insurance fraud, right? That's why there was so much loss,
Yeah.
and then you got these attorneys that are getting in there and they want to get there, and
I
guess what?
just it's rough when it comes to the attorney perspective of things, because
Yeah.
it people then get to a sense of entitlement as well, and they try to
Yeah.
battle it out, and then it just makes it difficult for the others.
And I think that there are, absolutely there's going to be, but I'm talking about like the attorneys going after, the utility companies and all this sort of thing. And absolutely, there should be, they should be reliable and accountable and the people that were really impacted. But, Alex and I have seen that, people who shouldn't have gotten settlements that they got, that they somehow finagled it. And what sucks about that is that, the fact of the matter is that the homeowners are the ones that are impacted because
Yeah.
great, so let's go after, you know, SoCal Gas or Edison, and guess our monthly, if you, SoCal Gas right now, are you kidding me? Our bills are astronomical because
Yeah.
we're paying for that litigation, right? So it's coming out of our pockets. It's coming
Yeah.
out of the homeowners' pockets. So that's another thing I do anticipate is like the cost of utilities is going to go up while these lawsuits continue.
Oh, yeah. 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 There's no
But
doubt about it. But Deanna, I think that in rounding this out is that obviously we want to have you back on Rethink Real Estate because
yes,
you and Alex run an incredible business, and I want people to learn how you guys have built what you've built. And that journey has just been something that has made me incredibly proud to be part of, what you guys are doing, in the sense of I get to, stand on your shoulders and call myself tall sometimes. So so again, it's a big thank you to you and Alex for what you guys have done for us in LA from an infrastructure perspective, the name that you've created and the business that you've built. But the one thing I would say is that if anybody does need help with this stuff, I think that you and Alex are incredible resources for them. We'll make sure that all of your information is in the show notes because, again, we don't want to make this episode just about, the reality of the fire side of it, because you guys are still helping many, many people transact their properties for record values within the area through the way in your business model operates. But the thing that I just want to sort of end on is that, what would you suggest to somebody that is looking at either moving in LA or selling their home or whatever it may be? Is this the right time to do that now, considering the influx of buyers in the market or whatever it is? What from a market condition perspective, like, what do you think that 2025 looks like in the greater LA?
I certainly, first of all, I want to say, Ben, thank you so much for your kind words. And, it is such an honor and a privilege for us to represent the Harcourts brand up here in Los Angeles. And we are going to be unleashing a fleet of new vehicles where I don't want to give out too much info because it's pretty exciting that they will be all over the roadways.
These things are unbelievable. I just need
They
to be clear
are.
about that.
Let's just put it this way. I did not run this by Alex Duke. I went completely rogue and it's a little bit bigger than I was anticipating, but I'm all for it. I certainly think that the LA real estate market has always been one of the best real estate markets to invest in. We're always, it's one of the highest demand markets to get into. And I think that, the way Alex and I have run our business is, we truly care about our clients' financial interest, and it's not just at the point of sale.
Oh, yeah.
It is throughout the course of their real estate investing for the rest of their lives. And so when it comes down to investing in real estate in LA, because of the fires and because of the insurance, and because of all these other factors, there's a lot of like nuances that you really need to be aware of.
There's no
Um,
doubt.
and we, I just pride myself on making sure that I'm absolutely protecting my clients' financial interest and in advising them as if it was my own money that I was
Yeah.
spending,
Yeah, of
and
course.
knowing what I know. And is, I like to think that Alex and I are a lot more knowledgeable and experienced than most agents in LA, and that's why we have gained the trust from our community and from our clients who have been referring us. So many clients no, sorry, clients. So many people from our
I
network
think,
are referring us their family and friends.
Deanna, I want to talk to that just quickly, is that the intensity of which people refer you is actually almost a little bit like, it's almost a little bit too intense, in the sense of that they like couldn't recommend you enough. Like it's some of the reviews that we have had from a company perspective that have come in based on what you guys have offered them just goes to show that if you go that extra mile, you care that little bit more, you show a little bit more blood, sweat, and tears in that equation, that you really want that outcome for them. And these people, like there are some people that have left reviews that I'm like, I do not want to cross paths with that person if they were saying a bad word about Alex and Deanna, like because that person would fight that person for them. Like it would just, it's amazing.
I mean, I got their back and they have our backs and
Right.
we pay it forward. And you know, we love what we do. I mean, Alex and I wake up every morning with just this sense of excitement, even during the hard times. You know, granted, the past couple of weeks, I feel like we've been going to bed at night being like, what the F just happened? Just
Yeah.
such an influx and, you know, really like high frequency conversations that we're having. We've already had some folks within the Harcourts network have reached out to us, and you know, we got a good friend, you know, they're moving to Newport, and you know, should we rent? Should we sell right now? And what's the timing? What's this going to look like? How is this all going to play out? I know you guys have the pulse of the market. Like, use us to be a resource. We are a sounding board. We are here to answer any questions. I will always pick up my phone, and if I don't, text Alex, and he will make sure I pick up my phone. And we are here to be a valuable resource. I would love to hop on another. This is actually my first time doing a podcast too.
You're kidding me. That's hilarious. That's good.
Because
again, this is the nature of this. And when we get you talking about your business, that'll be the next really valuable one. But in concluding the podcast, Deanna, thank you so much for being such a wealth of knowledge for the people out there. We wanted to make sure that we got this out there because you guys have had your fingers into the pie of the LA fires and the wealth of knowledge that you've given people that might have been affected, or even just for people to be aware of that external. I think that's important as well. But thank you for joining us on Rethink Real Estate. Looking forward to the next one. We've got verbal commitment. It's on record that you are coming back.
I'll get it on the calendar. Ben, I love you guys. Have an amazing, amazing day. And we'll see you in a few weeks, right?
Absolutely. Indeed. Thanks, Dee.
Right. Take care. Bye-bye.
So about 75% of our audience hasn't liked, followed, or subscribed to our podcast. It would mean the world to us, and it would help this podcast more than you know to expand our reach if you were to like, follow, or subscribe on any of the platforms that you're watching or listening on. Thanks again.